What is going on, everyone? My name is No Pun Intended, and welcome to coverage of my Week 7 battle for the PCL. If you guys enjoy my Draft League content, then please make sure to leave a like or a comment on it, because that would be nice, and I appreciate it. I think we're going on like 3 consecutive weeks without comments. So somebody, please, say something. I'm lonely, I'm bored, I need you, come on. I'll forever alone, stuck in my room, making videos about games that nobody cares about. Fine. I guess we'll talk about my game against Miticus and the Boston Beedrills, even though it's a game that happens in the league, nobody does anything, or blah, whatever. Miticus' team is definitely one of the more interesting teams I've had to prep for. He's got Celesteela, which automatically makes it a good team. However, the way he supports it is something I haven't really seen before. He's got 3 other flying types in addition to Celi. And the rest of his team is very elemental in coverage. And when I say elemental, that's code for it's weak to dragons. So, no surprise, but this is going to be only the second game this season where I bring Kyurem. Actually, the surprise for me is that it's only the second game I brought Kyurem. I think it just loses to a lot of the S tiers I've had to play so far. But Kyurem's actually good in this game, in spite of the fact that Miticus has a Celesteela, because it gets a lot of opportunities to set up a potential substitute on certain mons. Possibly the Amoonguss, possibly the Rotom. If it's a lead as Zelf, I should be able to handle that too. And then Ice Ground coverage just kind of decks his team. I mean, yeah, Rotom resists both of them, but it can't really do any damage to me back, and the only other mon that isn't weak to one of those 2 types of attacks is Celesteela itself, so hopefully we can pressure that mon quickly with the Kyurem set that I have. The next mon we're going to talk about is Aegislash. It's defensive Aegislash. There are 4 mons it's meant to check: Diancie, Togekiss, Azelf, and Masquerain. If any of those mons are ones that Miticus brings, Aegislash is going to be my answer to them. We have Life Orb Infernape, who I'm hoping will be able to just spam Flare Blitz against Miticus' rather fire-weak team. He has 3 resists for a Flare Blitz. Victini, who I don't think he wants to switch into Infernape, even though it does resist both with stabs. Rotom Wash, and Diancie. For those kind of mons, I feel as though I have answers for them. I have Iron Tail for Diancie, and I have a bunch of mons that switch into the Rotom. The only mon I have to really worry about is the Victini, but again, it is neutral to U-turn if I anticipate it coming in, and then I do have potential ways to check a Victini, like my Nihilego. It's running Choice Scarf, so it can outspeed a potential Scarf Togekiss, Scarf Landorus, and Scarfed Victini. Choice Scarf is... I have a disease where I can't stop putting Choice Scarf on Nihilego. Somebody please help me. But again, in this matchup, it makes a lot of sense, because the only mon that Miticus has that outspeeds Nihilego naturally is his Azelf, and I don't think he's going to run a Scarfed Azelf. That set doesn't work against my team, frankly. Anyway, we move on to my Seismitoad. This thing switches in very easily on Rotom Wash, because it's completely immune to both of its stabs, and then it just gets up the Stealth Rocks. I'm not really too worried about Miticus' team switching into this. A lot of his potential checks for Seismitoad are very slow Pokemons that are a bit passive, unless they kind of let in my offense, so that's cool. I can also potentially knock off items as well with the knockoff, obviously. And the final mon I brought is my Rotom. It's my primary switch into Celesteela. It can take 1 Flamethrower thanks to the Akaberry, and then I can get off a big Volt Switch on it. I can burn a potential mon with Will-O-Wisp, possibly the Celesteela if it decides to stay in. And then Defog is an emergency measure in case he brings Sticky Web's Masquerain. I don't want my speed lowered on much of my team, so Rotom isn't affected by the speed drop, and it can get rid of those webs very easily with the Defog. I mean, his team is very simplistic in scope compared to some of the other teams that I've built, but I still like it all the same. And looking at the 6 mons that Miticus brought, I am even more happy with the team that I brought. The only thing that might be a bit awkward in the matchup now is my Aegislash, because of the 4 mons that I wanted to check on Miticus' team, he didn't bring a single one of them, which is kind of awkward. But Aegi is still pretty good defensively, and it'll have its uses on any battle that I bring it to. Otherwise, I did notice he brought some very passive Pokemon like the Amoonguss and the Rotom, so hopefully I can take advantage of that. And he also brought the Double Ground. My team only has 1 ground resist, and that is my Rotom Mow, so I'm going to have to be a bit careful around Earthquake spam, or Earth Power spam if it's a special attacking Landorus Eye. But let's get into the game, why don't we? This game was definitely a fun one, at least for me. I don't know if it was that fun for him. But let's start things off with the lead matchup. I go with Seismitoad, Miticus goes with Victini, and once again, another successful lead. That's 5 for 5 so far, ignoring my auto leads, but hey, that's cool. Seismitoad is going to be able to get a knockoff on any mon that Miticus can bring in. He chooses to swap into his Celesteela first, and so I'm able to take off his leftovers, which signals to me that this thing is probably a more defensive set, which I'm honestly happy with. I didn't want this thing to be a sweeping set, at all. That would be pretty scary. But I'd rather my Toad not take a Giga Drain if, for some reason, he's running it just as a tech for Toad. So I'm instead just going to switch into my Rotom Mow. As long as he doesn't go for a Fire move, it's a net positive play for me. And he just clicks Leech Seed, which does nothing to my Grass-type Rotom. Now I've backed him into a bit of a corner. I'm definitely going to go for the Volt Switch, because I don't think there's any chance that he's going to switch into either of his ground types to absorb Volt Switch, especially considering that I'm not actually a Choice Rotom. And I am correct in that assumption. He goes right into the Amoonguss, and now I get a very easy switch into a Mon that can punish the rather slow Mushroom. And Infernape is as good a candidate as anyone to do that, because I'm very, very content to click Flare Blitz here, because his only fire resist on his team is the Victini or the Rotom, and I'm not sure he wants to bring either of them in on my Infernape. I mean, I guess Victini does make some kind of sense, but if I just go for U-turn, then he just takes damage even more so, and then I get another switch in. So I think that Rotom is a bit safer of a play for him, but I just go for Flare Blitz anyway, because I know that I have plenty of switch-ins for his Rotom Wash. And the Mon I choose to go into to answer this Rotom Wash is my Seismitoad. As the Rotom does try to Volt Switch out, but it gets blocked by Seismitoad. And what I can do now is go for my Stealth Rocks. I feel as though it's worth it, even if the Rotom does carry the HP Grass from my Toad. Turns out he actually doesn't. He just goes for a Dark Pulse, and I'm like, what kind of Rotom set runs Dark Pulse? And it should have probably clicked in my head that this Rotom was an Assault Vested set, but I didn't realize that until after the game. Nonetheless, I am very happy that he doesn't have the HP Grass, so once I get these Stealth Rocks up, I am going to switch out into my Kyurem, because I anticipated him trying to defog my Stealth Rocks away, and that would give me an opportunity to set up a sub without having my Kyurem take any damage. But Might actually just goes hard into the Amoonguss, which still works for me, just because Amoonguss does not appreciate facing off against another substitute. As it turns out, Might is going to switch back out into the Rotom, thinking that I don't really have a way to hit him that hard, which, admittedly, I don't. However, Substitute is going to alleviate that problem indirectly, but effectively. With my leftovers, I'm easily able to recover any damage that his Rotom can actually do to Kyurem, and his best move to hit me with apparently is the Discharge, which is, according to the rolls that he got here, a 3-hit KO, which is fantastic because I'm getting 3 turns of leftovers recovery in order to restore the HP that I lose from making the substitute. And I can just whittle him down with Ice Beams, as his Rotom doesn't pose any sort of threat to my Kyurem. In fact, I'm already almost back at full health. But with Rotom having taken a crit on the 3rd Ice Beam and getting knocked down to about 5% of its max HP, he does manage to break my substitute. However, with the health that I've gained back, I'm easily able to put up another one. And now Mightykiss, realizing that Rotom is pretty much doomed, is going to Volt Switch out into something that he hopes can actually break the sub, which, if Landorus can't break the sub, he is not training it properly. However, there's a very important fact that he didn't consider when making this play. There's only one reason why he would switch Landorus into a Kyurem, because Lando doesn't take an Ice Beam. He's not going to sack his S tier just to break a sub on a Kyurem. That just seems very reckless. So, in doing this play, he telegraphs to me that he has U-turn, and he's going to use it to break my sub. And no surprise, that's exactly what he does. He U-turns out with the Landorus, goes into the Rotom to sack it to the Stealth Rock damage. However, knowing this is going to happen, I've just set up another substitute. This is a pretty no drawback play for me. I mean, even if he does go for something like Earth Power to break my sub and keep the Landorus in, all I'm losing is a chunk of HP by doing this. My opponent, however, is going to lose a lot more than that. He's pretty much forced to sack one of his Pokemon just to break the substitute, and he chooses a Celesteela, which makes some kind of sense because it's the only Mon in his team that isn't weak to one of Ice or Ground. But I do manage to snag a crit on the first Ice Beam. I want to say that didn't matter, but then again, I have poor eyesight. You can see that my trainer avatar is wearing glasses, so at least I'm consistent with that. But I admit, there's no guarantee that Celesteela would have died to 2 normal power Ice Beams. Nonetheless, I'm glad it's out of my hair and I don't have to play it again this season. However, the rest of his Mons are not out of my hair just yet. One of those is the Victini, who is still pretty threatening even though I did get up Stealth Rocks to reduce its HP every time it tries to switch in. So I have to make a very difficult decision as to what Mon I want to switch into here. And there's not a lot I really want to take a hit. I kind of value every Mon's defensive integrity that I still have, so I decided to make a bit of a, admittedly, maverick play and go hard Aegislash on the Victini, because I don't anticipate him clicking the Fire move, even though Kyurem is neutral to Fire-type attacks. It's just like, I have a few answers to a Victini locked into a Fire move, so I think it's more likely that he tries to pivot out again, or that he goes for a Fighting-type move and Aegislash is just immune, and then I can throw off a Shadow Sneak. But even if Mightykiss had clicked V-Create or Blue Flare or whatever Fire move he may have had it on at this point, Aegislash was definitely the most expendable mon I had on my team, just because all the mons that I wanted to check, he didn't bring. So I was most okay with sacking it if I made the wrong prediction, and that's ultimately why I swapped Aegislash into a fire type. Anyway, he's going to swap into the Crocodile, and I don't want to risk this mon being potentially a substitute bulk up set, which does kind of freak me out a bit because a lot of my attackers are physical, and my only special attackers are a weakened Seismitoad and Neolego, and my Rotom technically. So I just decided to go hard into Rotom in order to threaten the Crocodile out with a potential Leaf Storm. He does end up going for the knockoff, which removes my Aqua Berry and does a ton of damage to Rotom. Definitely a bit annoying, but in my mind, my best play is just going for the Leaf Storm here to try to get off as much damage onto his team as I can. However, he just switches hard into the Amoonguss, and the Leaf Storm does bounce off, dealing almost no damage. So at this point, I don't really want to switch anything into the Amoonguss. I know it is pretty annoying, but if he does kill off my Rotom, I get a free switch into Kyurem, and I can just set up another sub and claim a kill. So what I decided to do is just click Will-O-Wisp in case he decides to double out, and even if he doesn't, I will be able to get some residual damage on the Amoonguss to nullify its leftovers recovery. And he ends up switching into Melandorus, which is actually very helpful for me because by burning it, I do reduce the power of its U-turns, and that makes it less likely to pivot in and out of my team. At this point, though, I decided to get a bit cheeky with my plays. What I'm going to do is switch out of Rotom into my Aegislash, anticipating that my opponent isn't going to go for the Earth Power on a Mon with Levitate, and just allow me to get off a free -2 Leaf Storm against him. So I go hard into my Aegislash, he does just click Hidden Power Ice, and then the next turn I'm going to switch out of Aegislash, go back into the Rotom Mow on the Earth Power, and in doing that I do get a round of Life Orb Recoil as well as 2 turns worth of burn damage onto his Landorus Eye, and now I'm going to hope he overpredicts and goes for Earth Power, so I will just stay in and click Leaf Storm. However, Mightykiss does make the smart play, just goes for the U-turn, and even with the burn, it is enough to kill off my Rotom. But I am happy that he did take a ton of recoil from all of his maneuvers. This Landorus is not going to be able to get off many more hits in this game, unless it's Earth Power, which to be fair is a safe play for him now that my only ground immunity is gone. But he does, however, go into the Victini on this play here, so what I can do is just go hard Seismitoad, and I know he probably expects the Rindo Berry, but he doesn't really have very much to handle Toad, so I think he just felt like he needed to go for the attack, just in case I was bluffing. However, I brought Rindo Berry most weeks that I brought Seismitoad, so it's not that surprising. However, I make a bit of a misplay here. I should have attacked with Scald rather than knockoff, because I don't think a knockoff under normal circumstances would have killed his Victini. I do manage to score a crit, so it doesn't end up mattering, but my best play was going for Scald just because his only switch into it was Amoonguss, and I can punish Amoonguss very easily with the remaining members of my team. The only thing it could have potentially done was Spore him on and put it to sleep, but I have multiple answers for it, so I shouldn't have been too worried about that, and I should have just gone for my overall stronger attack to ensure that I got a kill on the Victini. However, it all worked out for me anyway, because for some reason I'm getting very lucky in this game. And now what I am going to do is just sack off my Seismitoad. Now that it's at a quarter of its health, and it's slower than everything he has on his team, bar Amoonguss, I don't really feel as though it's terribly useful. So I will just sack it off to Crocodile's Earthquake. I do see the Life Orb once again, which means that Crocodile is now in range, I believe, of Infernape's Life Orb boosted Flare Blitz. So I am just going to click the attack here. And Mightykiss is going to pivot out and sacrifice the Amoonguss, which is definitely his best play because Kyurem still abuses Amoonguss with the set that I brought, and Kyurem arguably can get a sweep going if I can set up a sub on it. So, decent play on his part. He now can go back into the Croak and get off an Intimidate on me, which means that I no longer can kill the Crocodile in one hit. Now, for some reason, during this proceeding, I forgot that I had U-turn, which I definitely should have clicked because I know that this isn't a Scarfed Crocodile, so I don't necessarily know what I was thinking. I could have gotten off some nice damage onto Croak, which is still pretty bulky and still probably the biggest threat he has to my team right now. Instead, I just switch hard into Aegislash, intending to sack it, which I do a pretty good job of because it dies in 2 hits, but really, if I'd gotten the U-turn damage off, I pretty much just auto-won here. Instead, what I have to do is make a bit of a more difficult prediction here, going back into Infernape to reset the Intimidate, and now I remember that I do have the U-turn, so I can just click the attack. Crocodile's going to die because it's taken too much Life Orb Recoil in order to survive even with an Intimidate at this point. And now what I can do is pivot out of Infernape into my Nihilego on the U-turn, and his final mon is going to be the Landorus Eye, which dies in 1 hit to my Hidden Power Ice. Definitely want to wish good game to Mightykiss. His team did scare me for a little bit, but I feel as though my team is very well prepped to handle the mons that he brought. Kyurem performed pretty well in this game, Seismitoad performed pretty well in this game, Rotom Mow performed pretty well in this game, Infernape performed pretty well in this game, and Nihilego got a kill at the end, so for the 1 turn it was out, it performed pretty well. The only mon that didn't really do very much is my Aegislash, but that's more because of the mons he brought didn't align with what I wanted Aegislash to check, so I'm not too worried about it. Nonetheless, we are 5-2, still tied for the best record in the league, and the important part about this is that Mightykiss was the last divisional opponent that we faced for the season. And normally I wouldn't bring that up, however I just learned this week that playoffs are determined by how well you perform in your division, not how well you perform in the league overall. So, of the 5 other teams in my division, I've already played all of them, and my final 4 games against teams outside of my division, which means that I'm not competing with them for playoffs. However, that still means that I want to get at least 1 or 2 more wins, just so I can ensure my spot, because our divisional race is pretty tightly packed. But this win against Minicus is pretty huge for that, because not only do I get a win, but I also push him down and make it less likely that he makes playoffs, so that I have a better chance to get in there. And that's the important part for me. I just want to make the postseason, because once I get in there, I will have every opportunity I can to play my opponents and potentially take home the Philadelphia Aegislash's first championship. With that being said, however, I want to thank you all so much for watching. Please make sure to leave a like or a comment on this video if you enjoyed. And I do mean please, I would really, really appreciate it. Make sure to go check out Miticus and all the other PCL coaches. Their channel links are going to be in the description. Subscribe to my channel for more Draft League content coming in the future. And until I see you next time, take care.